Guys, we are going to tear into what storytelling is today and have a blast doing it. I'm here with Kody G and Jolly G Willikers. We're going to have a great time. Today, it is all about story selling, and he's someone that really knows all about neuro-linguistic programming and what that does for you. Is makes it so you can be more articulate, more confident in every single word, and make sure those words pay their way. So excited to have this conversation with him today. And you're going to see that there is so much more in neurolinguistic programming that has to do with telling compelling stories and how we can help you help yourself. So let's learn how to sell by serving and doing it without feeling salesy. That's what Kody G is all about. So let me introduce him. Welcome to the Leveling Up podcast. So glad you're here, Kody. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. I love that paper rip, dude. And that actually got me laughing and got me in state. So yeah, I'm excited to be here
Beautiful.
with you, man.
I'm so stoked to have you as well. Well, we got to know each other through the Final Percent Network. You did a great training on NLP. Let's first set the anchor, if you will, with understanding why it's so essential to understand that words mean things for people when we're talking about storytelling. And then we'll get into what story selling is all about. So you don't feel salesy, but we can really tap into what it means to be a servant storyteller. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, number one, words are extremely important because the Bible says so. It's what I anchor my life on. Proverbs 18:21 says that death and life are in the power of the tongue. And the way that I've heard it explained before is that whether you have a small little dinghy boat or a giant yacht, it's all still steered by the rudder in the back. And your tongue is the same way. It shapes the direction of where you're headed. And I believe that your words don't just describe your situation that you see, but it creates your situation. And in NLP, it's considered the study of subjective reality, meaning the world that we live in means nothing except for the meaning that we give it. For example, something like this for me and you is very fun. It's exciting. And I'm like, cool, who can I help unlock their mind, unlock the ability to use their words articulately? But for other people, they could be like, holy crap, man, this is scary. The fact that I'm talking, are people going to see me? How do I look? And so it's like, it re-solidifies the idea that a podcast, for example, has no meaning except for the meaning that I assign it. So in NLP, what we help people do, start to understand their beliefs, their thoughts, their decisions, what gives those things meaning, and we can reframe them and reshape them to mean something completely different. And that's the programming element of neurolinguistic programming, is rewiring your identity from who you are currently to who you want to be.
Beautiful. One of the ways that I think this is so useful, because we're talking about neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro is talking about our brain. Linguistic is all the words, the language, and then programming is just like you'd have a program on a computer. It is the software of our minds. Every single word will mean something different to different people. But as we understand which words will trigger us and which words will allow us to create new worlds, this is what opens up with storytelling. Now, one of the things I'd love to tap into today, because you're an expert on this, I think you'll have a blast being able to play with us, is this idea of when you have something that's really significant to you and you can change that story, and suddenly the significance, whether it's fear or something that is a negative outcome based on the significance you put on something, that you can change the way that you perceive those things and those words, and you can alter the experience because of the story you're telling about it. If you're in neurolinguistic programming, we're talking about submodalities, but let's go there and keep it on this is your first introduction to neurolinguistic programming's level. So it's easy for brand new people to still be able to understand this.
Yeah. And so just to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, you're talking about the stories we tell ourselves, the power that they have.
Absolutely.
And specifically how to reframe that, or why they mean something.
Cool.
Yep,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, man, I'll use my own example. So I grew up a very, very shy kid, and that developed a huge passion for me wanting to learn NLP, communication, psychology, etc. And dude, I have stories that I remember where just so many stories. And one of them specifically was where there was this girl I found so attractive. Her name was Vanessa. And
Vanessa, I get you. Vanessa.
Yeah. So it was after lunchtime, man. And we were walking to Spanish class together. And for whatever reason, we met up. She knew I had a crush on her. The whole entire school knew somehow. And dude, we walked for probably like 3 or 4 minutes together. And I think I said one sentence to her. Hey, how are you? She said, good. How are you doing? Good. and she'd make conversation. I'd have one word answers. I was just so in my own head about speaking to her.
Yeah.
And this, when I was probably 16 or 17, but dude, that went all the way from the time I was born till I was 19 years old before I'm like, I need to get this under control. I need to learn how to develop the skill of speaking because I was so bad at it. And what would happen, Brigham, is the story that I would tell myself was I'm shy. So now when I went to find a girl, or I saw a girl that I found attractive and I didn't talk to her, I would justify it and say, well, yeah, it's just because I'm shy. Of course, I'm not going to talk to her. And the story started to reaffirm over and over and over again. And it bled into so many areas of my life outside of just a girl I found attractive, but it was in business. It was when I was trying to go out there for an interview and I couldn't communicate my value, but I knew in my heart I was going to show up early. I was going to stay late if needed. And I'm a valuable asset to the team because I cared. I was a good person deep down, but I couldn't show my value. And so many people in life, in business, on a sales call, on a stage, in a relationship, they can't demonstrate their value, not because they don't have any, but because they don't have the words or the ability to articulately express what's inside of their head. And so this all comes down to, what story are you telling yourself? If you're telling yourself the same story over and over again, like a record player, you're going to hear the same song. And there comes a point where you have to get tired of hearing that same song and you need to rewire where you're currently at and what you're currently thinking. And really what it is, it's a process of unlearning.
Mm.
So often when I'm coaching people, I'm not necessarily just teaching like I was teaching on a stage when we met in Denver, but I'm helping them unlearn. Well, what made you think that? Where did that belief come from? And they're unlearning the things that they once decided. And what it really is I'm getting them to a point where they can agree both consciously and subconsciously that every single thing in their life is a decision. And one of the most powerful and the most basic concepts in NLP is cause and effect. And if we can get someone from being at effect of what happens into being at cause, they become empowered to create that change. But so often that story is, this happened to me. I'm this way because of my parents, because of the economy, because this is just the way that life is supposed to be. I was dealt a bad hand. But if you're telling that story over and over again, the movie of your life that you're experiencing is going to be always a negative downfall. But just like any great movie, that hero begins to shoot up randomly. And it seems like it's suddenly, but we serve a God of suddenlies. And your story that you're living is a story that can suddenly shift when you make the conscious decision to decide to believe something else.
Beautiful. One of the things that comes to mind with this is, if you choose to show up as that selfish or shy version of yourself, whatever negative trait you choose to place on you, you will start to recognize those traits in yourself. But as soon as you say, you know what, that's not who I am, this is who I am, and you start to live into that true core desire, even if there's a little bit of a distance between that characteristic, if you will, and where you are at that moment. You say, I am making choices today to be more courageous. Today, I'm going to find ways to go out of my comfort zone and speak with someone that I haven't spoke with in the last little while. As you make those choices, you start to basically create evidence for yourself saying, oh, I am courageous. This is how I'm courageous. This is why I'm courageous. And this is something that I find so fascinating with neurolinguistic programming. We can choose which story we want to run. It's just like a program. You press go on it and then it runs the program. And if you don't like the program, let's update the software. So talk to us in simple terms. What is a way that you typically will go and help someone rewire a trigger or a button, something that sends them into a negative state or into something that they don't like as far as their story?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of different entry points. What comes to mind
Absolutely.
immediately is what I shared on stage, and it's this. It's, my name is Kody. I'm a man of joy, presence, and love. I'm a bold prayer warrior, and I'll pray with my brothers anytime, anywhere. This is an identity statement. So you mentioned something about where someone's currently at to where they want to be, even if they don't see that shift yet. So in this identity statement, I say that I'm a man of joy because in the Bible, it says the joy of the Lord is my strength. So even if I don't feel joyful, God has told me that the joy of him is going to be what I strengthen myself in. So having something that you anchor yourself into, and that's biblical, but from an NLP standpoint, it goes to your values. One of my values is joy despite circumstances. So if I'm in a rough spot financially, if my relationship is not going well, if it's just been a weird day,
Yeah.
my portion is still joy despite the circumstances. So having something initially that you anchor yourself into is so important. And what we do at the master practitioner level, it's called a values elicitation.
Mhm.
So we start to figure out what someone actually values, why they value that. And sometimes we can shift it. And an example of this is I was working with someone one time who was great at business, but his marriage was not doing well. And what we found is that through a series of questions, he valued money over relationships and family. And he didn't do it consciously. If I would have asked him
Mhm.
which one's more important, he would have said, my wife, of course. But based on his decisions, his actions,
Mhm.
and it was actually rooted in a scarcity mindset from when he was younger, he really, really valued money.
Mm.
And the money was so that he can take care of his family. So
Right.
in his head, he thought he was doing a noble service and he thought he was doing the right thing for his family. But the very same thing that he was trying to get is what he was repelling. That was
Interesting.
love from his wife. So with that, we start to get very deep into why do you believe this way? What benefits are actually driven from this belief? And we start to look at things like secondary gain. This thing that you're doing, what else are you gaining from it that you might not realize? And this could be something as simple as smoking a cigarette. I've worked with a lot of people that don't want to be smoking cigarettes and they hear NLP can change things like that. And it definitely can. It's a small tool for it. But I'll ask them, like, what do you gain from smoking a cigarette? Oh, nothing. They're bad for me. They're expensive. Of course, I understand. If there was something you'd gain, though, what would that be? Oh, well, I guess I actually do connect with more people when I smoke. Okay, cool. So, like, are you telling me that you can't connect with people outside of a cigarette? Well, no, but I take breaks during the workday and I get more breaks and I get to talk to people out there. Okay,
Mm.
cool. And so little things like this are what it's called secondary gain. It keeps someone stuck in that problem. And so when you can start to identify and with those series of questions, reveal something to someone, they're looking at it from a whole different lens. And it's not some magic sauce that we need to do of like a technique for it. It's just going very, very deep into a therapeutic style of questioning.
Beautiful. One of the things that comes to mind with this is when we're talking about story selling, it really is understanding what are the true motivators for people, and are we helping them see themselves in the story? What are ways that you've been able to utilize your level of neurolinguistic programming to help other people see that whatever it is that you're selling will benefit them, and the story is that bridge between what they want, and you've done the digging to figure out what they want and then how you can serve them? Let's talk about that in a kind of
Yeah.
30,000-foot overview of what story selling is first, and then we can get into some of the weeds and the and the
Yeah.
real nitty gritty stuff.
Right. That one question can drive an entire podcast. But I think
Absolutely.
going a little bit more on a higher level to start is why are stories even important? Number
Mm.
one, because features tell. If I'm talking about the features of a car I'm trying to sell, the features of my sales coaching program, cool, that tells you what it is. Great. Brigham, I'm going to work with you. It's going to be 10 grand. We're going to meet once a week on Tuesdays on Zoom. We're going to go over this stuff. Okay, cool. It's a features. I'm going to teach you objections and role playing, listen to your call recordings. That's great. But if I start to tell you a story about a time when I really struggled at sales, and you know what, man, during this time, Brigham, I was much like you, where I was trying to get clients into my business and I just found out that I'd have these sales calls and I was missing that connection. And I was finding during this time that there was a little piece there where I knew they wanted the service, but I just felt pushy if I kept trying to get them into it. And I couldn't get them to just want to buy. So what I did is I created this format and it gets people from going to you having to sell to them wanting to buy. And that's what I'm going to be teaching you here when you sign up with me. Right. And you see that example of what I just did is I'm telling a story that they saw themselves in. Because if I seem like I'm some sales guru, which I'm not, people are, oh, of course it's easy for you, Kody. And that's why I often start out with the fact that I used to be a very shy kid, because people will often distance or pedestalize someone that is good at something as like, well, they're gifted. Of course it works for Brigham. He was just naturally born with this ability to tell stories, but they didn't look at how many hours and hours and hours you studied, not just English, but so
Mhm.
many different languages so you can articulate your story better. And I think that's the importance of it, is that we love stories as people. We love things that entertain us. We love movies. We love entertainment. We love music. And through stories, if you can get someone to draw hope from your story, you don't even need to tell them anything. And here's why this matters. Because what I tell you consciously, you can reject, and oftentimes
Mm,
you will. But a story that I tell you subconsciously, you're going to start to draw a conclusion based on where you're at.
mm,
The same way that, let's imagine The Pursuit of Happiness, right? With Will Smith. Incredible movie. You see that where he's kind of losing it all. He has his son sleeping in a bathroom, and then he comes out on the other side. Someone could be going through a bankruptcy. Someone could have just came out of a divorce. No matter where they're at, they're watching the same story, but they're getting a completely different meaning from it, not based on what the story tells them, but based on where they're at. So stories are very important for that reason, because you go from just talking about the thing to actually driving the entire movement of what
mm.
you're trying to get someone to enroll into. And then they want to be a part of it based on that. And that's really subconscious selling, that's story selling. And that's really how to get someone interested in buying without you having to hard close them.
That's a wonderful way to approach this. Storytelling is allowing people to be part without having them be themselves in that exact moment. It's allowing them to put on a role or to say, oh, this is how I fit into this story. And then you say, well, what if that was reality for you? Oh, shoot, that can be my reality. I heard this example from a realtor. They said, don't just have people walk in the house and talk about the house, talk about what the kids are going to be doing, what it would be like to have Christmas in that moment, where the kids are going to be placing their rooms and what type of activities they'll do. And they weave stories in each room. And you think about this, if you are placing those people in the home, you aren't doing the selling, the story is. I think that's one of the things that's really amazing about this is you're creating a bridge of connection. You're allowing them to see that if this is what they truly want, an actual core desire, this is a way they can get it. If there's other ways to get it, yes, there are. There's other products, but this might be simpler. It might be faster. It might cause them to, build a deeper relationship with you. There's so many different reasons that people want to buy, but
Yeah.
very rarely do people want to be sold. So you talk about this distinction between being salesy and someone that is connecting deeply through the word choice, through intonation, through all of the different communication styles that allows you to really grab onto somebody and make a deep, heartfelt conversation and connection. How do you stay away from being salesy and still crush it in sales?
Great question. So there's two things that I always say to start with. Number one is your heart posture. What are
Mm.
you doing the selling for? Is it truly because you want to serve, or is it just because you need to make money? If it's just because you need to make money, you're going to have commission breath. And then now what has to happen is you need to learn all of these. Yeah, it smells bad, stinks.
Stinks,
Yeah,
right?
and now you got to have all of these techniques and tools, and you're so focused on what to say, and you're not even present anymore because you're trying to sell someone.
Yeah.
Versus very simply, the reason why I'm able to answer a question like you're asking me, and so many times people will answer a question in a completely far off way that doesn't hit it, but I'm listening to you. I'm not really
Mm.
thinking about what I'm going to say until you finish, because you could start somewhere and then you can give context and ask a question at the end that completely derails me. But if I'm just focused on how I'm going to answer, I've missed that.
Yeah.
And so many salespeople do that. I've trained probably 3,000 to 3,500 different salespeople. I try to track it the best that I can. And I've listened to hundreds of sales calls. And so often you can almost hear right when that person, the prospect, finishes talking, the salesperson immediately is responding with something, whether it's an objection or a story or trying to build rapport. And by doing so, they're missing the key part, which is active listening. And by saying, what does this person really want? But the way now I tie it together by saying the only way you can do that is if number one, your heart posture is truly for people. And number two, your intention is to serve them. And I believe that selling at the highest level is serving. And this is only the case though if what you do provides value. But I know if I charge someone 5, 10, 15, $50,000, whatever price point I'm going to charge them, they're going to get at least equal at a worst case, but more than likely greater value in return. based
Mhm.
on their current situation and what they're going to gain from what I do. So that's why I can confidently go into it, because I've done the reps to get me there. But I want to hit on something that's so important. You said, how do you still crush it at sales
Mhm.
without being salesy? Number one, a lot of it is mindset work.
Yeah.
Before I teach anyone objections or different scripting or how to even use their tone, I go into their own beliefs about sales, their own beliefs around finances, their own beliefs around talking about money,
Mhm.
asking for a social security number, asking for a credit card. Because so often, this is where the NLP comes into play. People hear things like, you should not ask your friends about money. Don't talk about money to other people. And so now these little beliefs drive into sales.
Mhm.
And here's where it gets scary though. Because if you were to ask someone, do you believe talking about money is bad? No, of course not. Money is a tool, blah, blah, blah. That's conscious again, though. But it's what's driving the boat subconsciously. So when we do NLP work, I get very, very deep. And I can take a 30-minute segment to just get one answer, but
Yeah.
it's uncovering all the layers of the onion that I'm trying to uncover. Right when I hear that thing, boom. Now we can rewire something. And what we do is that it's quick change, but it's also lasting change. And I want to kind of say this as a disclaimer, not NLP is that way. The way that I do it is this way, because I introduce a lot of different methods into my coaching style or my questioning style. And people have heard NLP and it sounds very scripted or it sounds very clunky or robotic. That's someone who's trying to do NLP. But someone who just is NLP, as it is who they are, it's listening, it's
Mhm.
understanding human behavior. And that's how to sell without being salesy. Understand human behavior. Why is someone buying this freaking car? Why is someone buying my sales coaching? Why is someone buying this home? Dude, I don't know. But what do most people do? We assume, oh, you know what, Brigham, I'm great at sales. I've led sales teams. I've coached 9-figure entrepreneurs, this and that. And here's what you need. Here's what I know. Versus, oh, dude, what are you struggling with in your current sales process? Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Got it. What have you tried to fix that? Yeah. How did that work? Was it good or did it not work so well? Didn't work? Okay.
Mhm.
What do you think didn't work about it? Like, what else would you maybe if you had it that would have helped you actually get to that goal? I don't know. Right? You can totally dumb it down, have a conversation like, oh, yeah, like, tell me, Brigham. I really don't know, dude. Like, obviously, I'm great at sales. You've seen what I do. You heard my podcast. Cool. I'll own that. Thank you for the honor. But I don't know you yet, man. Help me understand you.
Mhm.
And this translates to everything. I'm looking at vehicles right now, and I was just at the BMW dealership a few days ago, and it's so funny how so many salespeople are like, "Yeah, this has the wireless charging, and it has the panoramic roof, and it has this, and it has that." Okay, cool. It has four-wheel drive. Why the heck would anyone care about four-wheel drive? Oh, well, do you go camping? Do you drive in the rain? Right? And you start asking someone questions like that. Yeah, I do. Okay, cool. Do you like taking road trips? Yeah, I do. Well, dude, what's great about this SUV is that it has a panoramic roof. So obviously, this great weather we get here in San Diego, you get to enjoy the sun coming in. It doesn't rain a lot, right? They're using something that's relevant. Or, dude, you said you want to go camping. This actually has four-wheel drive. So if you get on a dirt road, you know that you're not going to be left in the dust like those Honda Civics, right? And starts to play to, yeah, I want that. This has a lot of cargo space in the back, so you can put all your bags there, and the back seats completely go down, so you can even sleep in this if you don't have a tent, right? But people explain the features. Oh, the seats go down, this and that. And so I always ask myself, why the heck does this person care? And it's an ignorant assumption to think that people care about what you do
Mhm.
until you really explain it to them.
Let me translate this for my audience because you did it beautifully as far as demonstrating how to translate value to somebody else. We have to figure out what matters to the prospect. And before you talk about any feature or even any benefit, you have to figure out what is it that they want? Why would they care about those things? Then you say, well, what this feature means for you is you know how you want to camp. We have panoramic. You like to look at the stars? Well, this is going to make it so you don't even have to get out of your car. You can look at the stars. You start to paint these pictures of possibilities for people and help them see themselves in the car, help them see themselves far away in the mountains of Wyoming, experiencing a pitch black night with the beautiful sounds of the, the crows and the owls and that visual that you create for them, that's what you're selling is the trip, not the vehicle physically. And I think that's what great
Yeah.
salesmen do is they build that bridge with their words, and they listen way more than they actually speak. That's
Yeah.
something that I've noticed with neurolinguistic programming as well. It's figuring out what are the words or those buttons that you have to press to be like, oh, that is something that got them to light up. I'm going to drop everything else. This is what we're focusing on now. Now, I know you do a lot of coaching. You help people in massive ways improve their communication. I do the same thing specifically with storytelling, helping not just the way that you show up on camera in front of different people in every conversation, but being able to take these ideas and frameworks and be able to do it off the fly almost in an improvisational way. It all comes down to being 100% present. I want to hear your thoughts on this because sometimes when you hear scripting in sales, people think, well, I've got my book here. I've got my 40 or 50 different ways to
Yeah.
do these objections. You're like, wait a second. Oh, dude, no, you master those so that you never have to look at them and you can just be with the people. What's your idea of how to train people so that they don't sound scripted, but they have all the answers? They don't ask questions that get them completely derailed. They help stay on that straight line. So they can actually make sales instead of talk about sales or talk about the things. They get to the real point of how do I serve that person the way they want to be served to get what they want to accomplish?
Yeah. So there's a very specific reason why you can give two salespeople the same script and have a completely different outcome.
Mm.
The script doesn't matter then. That should show you just the fact that that one thing is true. It's impossible for the script to matter as much as the actual individual person. So to answer your question of how do you get someone to go to that, it's not by telling them the script doesn't matter, nor is it by giving them a better script. What it is really by doing, number one, it's uncovering every belief that they have that's driving that conversation. And so what I do with someone is that, let's say that I'm working with a client who has a script down. I'm not going to look at it and say, oh, this script is horrible. Let's get you a new one. Oftentimes that does happen, but I want them to walk me through that script and say, based on each line, what is the intention of it? And what I find so much is that, dude, we cut out like at least 60% of a script most times. And what I'd rather have is a few bullet points, a high level of like, find out who they are. What are they interested in? What have they tried? What didn't work? Right. But so much is like, oh, great, Brigham, that sounds awesome. So, hey, let me make sure I'm hearing you correctly. And it just sounds so scripted. So what we do, it becomes so much more of a belief and a value thing, which this is not something that you can really teach in a YouTube video. This is not something you can teach in a book. It requires one-to-one questioning. And when I do this, though, I found that people really get to understand not just sales, because sales is like a chunk down form of communication. Communication, you have conflict resolution, you can have sales, public speaking, podcasting. These are just chunked down forms of the chunked up thing, which is communication. And so when you can really teach someone the essence of communication, sales is just something they naturally get better at. So oftentimes when I coach people, it's very different because it's not just here's the objection handlers, here's this framework to overcome objections. And I started my career doing that stuff, I'll be honest with you. But as it's developed, I've learned that when you can teach people the deeper layers of how their mind works, how the prospect's mind worked, and what words actually do, when you say a certain word, it holds a vibration that makes someone think, feel, or believe a certain thing. And when you understand all of that, you naturally just get good at selling because you're stripping away all the BS and you're just having a conversation with someone. But oftentimes it takes a lot of work to get there. And I'll go even back to talking to girls. There's so many people that teach like pickup artistry. And I've heard a lot about this because people have asked in NLP, like, oh, isn't that what pickup artists use? And so I looked into it, and there's books that are written on that using concepts of NLP or other things that are related to it. And what I've kind of came to the conclusion of is that when you have to do all these opening lines and say this and approach this way, you're just trying to mask something. And you're doing something to build the skill to where the person that's never learned that but just has confidence goes and says, hey, I'm Kody, nice to meet you. Or, hey, Brigham, I'm happy we're on this call. Let's figure out if I can help you. I don't know. But so you have to learn a lot of times, often to unlearn. And once you peel back that layer of the onion, you're ripping off these old fruits, like off of a tree that no longer serve you. And you're planting different seeds, different roots that can blossom a better tree. And I love sales. I've done it for about a decade now. But what I found is that people really, they need sales help because they're valuable. They have something they believe in that they know their prospect can get value in. And it's so sad to see people that have a great product or service and they just can't explain it as much as the next person and they're losing. So I believe if you do something you believe in, everyone should be learning ways to get better at explaining it.
Very simple story. This just reminded me of a time when I was serving. Wow, this is almost a decade ago. I was serving a mission in Taiwan, and I had this guy that for some reason I just could not connect with him. We were on the bus, and he seemed interested for a moment. I talked with him for like 30 seconds. And after we had spoken, he was like, "Oh, I'm not interested." I was like, "Well, that's Kalien." Well, Kalien in Mandarin is too bad. But if you say Kalien, that also means pitiful. And from the context, he took it as, well, that's pitiful.
Mm.
He just chewed into me for the whole rest of the ride on our like 5-minute bus ride. And I was like, wow, words really matter. I need to be more conscientious of what those words actually mean for everyone else. Because it's not just the words that you say, what you think they mean. Because in my context, what I said was, it's too bad that you think that. That's what I was saying. What he heard was, wow, you are pitiful. That's a very different experience. We have lots of words like that. In neurolinguistic programming, we get to recognize we are absolutely in charge of every single word that comes out of our mouth. We are not always able to understand the impact it's going to make on somebody else.
Yeah.
We will have to take the meaning and figure out, is this going to do what I think it does? What's your thoughts on that? To be responsible for all the words coming out of our mouth and the responses we get back, just like I did with that word that was pitiful.
Yeah, dude. Well, you might remember this. I shared it in Denver, but it's a presupposition of NLP.
Yeah.
And what a presupposition is that it's not just something that you presuppose, but in NLP, it's a filter in which you view the world.
Mhm.
So one of the filters and one of the presuppositions, number one, is to always respect someone's model of the world. So before I can influence you, before I can understand you, before I know anything about you, I need to really know who you are. I need to know what you believe around sales or around stories or around communication to know how we can help you. And so it's a very great presupposition to have. But the other one that's related to your question is the meaning of communication is the response that you get. So if you think you're a great communicator, but that person's having that kind of outcome, you're probably not as great at communicating as you think in that moment. And so what this does is it puts you at cause. It makes you empower for everything around you. And the other layer to this is that communication is 100% responsible. I'm 100% responsible for what I say and how it's received. And so I do a fun little exercise where I ask people, I say, if you were to think about two people in a conversation, what is the percentage of communication that each person is responsible for? Most people, 50-50. Some people try to think out of the box, 75-25. And it's 100-100. We're both responsible for what's said and how it's received. And immediately the objection a lot of people have is, well, I can't be responsible for what the other person thinks. Oftentimes that's true. I get it. You can't always, but in an effective conversation, in a conversation with someone who is level-headed, in a conversation where you want to be able to have some sort of influence on the outcome, you need to understand that your words, what you say and how you say it, going to dictate what that person receives from what you just said. So going into the power of tone is that based on how you say something, not just what you say, it can make the person think or feel something completely different about what you said. And so that's why I mentioned that the call recording thing, listening to so many different call recordings, dude, I've heard so often what someone wants to say because I know them, I know their outcome, but based on how it sounds is completely different. And if I say something like this, if you're about to invest 25 grand and I say, yeah, I can help you. I just said, yeah, I can help you. I had a stutter in between the I and my tone went up at the end. I can help you. And that signals a question versus an authoritative statement. I can help you. And things like this are just so important because you can't fake these. Or maybe you can. It would take an incredible amount of work and you're probably not going to get it right as often as you need to. So this is why you have to do that inner work of really the NLP deep dive into your beliefs, your values, your memories, your identity around who you are, what you do, what your offer is, what the client's results are going to be, and how they're delivered, so you can just be congruent. Because the biggest issue that people have in storytelling or in selling is that their words are incongruent with their tone and their body language. The three elements of your communication, it's your physiology, which is your body language, it's your tonality, which is how you say something, and then lastly, it's your words, which is what you're actually saying. And I know right away who studied, because most people just focus on the words they're saying. That's a very small part. And that's why I told you right away, I don't go just into someone's script, it's going into their mind, because everyone's running their own script in their mind of what they're thinking, what they're believing, and then it goes to what they're saying. And it says somewhere in the Bible that your thoughts are an overflow of what the heart feels. And it's exactly true. If my heart is not for you, eventually you're going to notice that based on what I say. If my heart is just to show up on a sales call and just to get someone's money, dude, eventually they're going to feel that. And that's understandable, right? That's common sense. But the part that I find a little bit sad is people on the other end, that their heart is not that way. Their heart truly is to help. Like, they're pouring their heart, their energy, their time, their money on the line, trying to build their business, but they just can't show that. And they know they can get value. They're good at what they do. And it's that little missing link in the chain of wealth, which is communication and being effective with your storytelling. And storytelling, I think, for a lot of people needs to be reframed from just, well, once upon a time, let me tell you, back when I was 10 years old. It's not always like that. It's not. Sometimes it's very, very simple. It's very simple. It's just guiding someone through your script, through the form of telling a story. And an example of that is something like this. Let's say that you say, the client says this is expensive. And you were to say something like, dude, you know what, Brigham, I totally get it, man. When I was early in my career, honestly, I felt that everything was expensive. And I don't know if this is you or not, but maybe you find that that thing that is expensive is kind of keeping you from where you want to go. And what I found is that when I thought it was expensive, I knew also that if I could afford it, it would help me get there. So what I had to do is I had to reframe my mind from it being expensive to, that's the one key I need to unlock where I need to get. And so I'm telling a story of how I felt that same way. And I've heard people explain this as like feel, felt, found.
Feel, felt, found. Yeah.
Yeah. Which kind of cheesy, but there's validity behind it. And it's showing the power of this, but it's not doing it. I think it's cheesy and it's manipulative when you're making stuff up to make this feel like, how do I use feel, felt, found, versus actually just listening like, dang, Brigham thinks this is expensive. Like, I feel for this guy, even if we're in different situations. Even if I'm making multi-seven figures and this person's brand new, I need to humble myself, get back in that person's perspective to go back to number one of NLP, which is to understand and appreciate or respect their model of the world.
One of the things that you brought up, which is absolutely essential when you're talking about storytelling, is the universality of the experience. Every single one of us have felt things. At some point in our life, we've been sad, we've been distraught, we've been frustrated. When you tap into an emotion, that is something that anchors the story in reality for people. And it makes it so there's a universality to it. When we're talking about the human experience, then we have created a link in that chain of the story. After we've anchored that experience in a feeling, people can say, oh, when was the last time I felt that way? They're going to be there with you. They might even feel it as you're bringing it in, because you can put feeling into your voice, into the vowels, into the way that you communicate it. And after that, you think, all right, how do I make this real? You don't always have to be theatrical in the way you present a story. Even when I was sharing my story, I wasn't crazy theatrical in the way that I brought up my story with Kelly and the pitiful experience. But you can actually bring in fear or frustration into the way that you say it, your tonality. You don't even need to have the story be 5 minutes long. A lot of times, the more concise and the shorter it is, the more punchy, the easier it is for people to get value from it, because you're not putting on all of these different ideas that makes it so they're like, oh, well, that was me until you said it was this thing and this thing and this thing. Then they back out.
Yeah.
Sometimes being intentionally vague will benefit you if it is a universal experience. If it's not, though, the specifics will make it so they can see how they can tap into it. let's go here for just a second. You talked about congruence. I talk about alignment as well. If we are misaligned in our story, what that means for sales, help us understand how bad that is for us and how we can fix it.
Mm, really good question. And alignment, dude, it's thrown around so often that it's like I hate even using words like that, incongruence, but it's everything. It really is. And if you're unaligned, and take this out of sales for a second, but let's just say it's a relationship. And let's say that say you meet someone who is a Christian, for example, and I'm not a believer, but I'm like, man, this person's a Christian. So I got to start posting about God on my social media. Let me start reading the Bible and acting like it. Let me start acting. No, I'm doing so much acting versus just
Mm,
being. And I believe this is what happens very commonly in sales. And when I say sales, I don't mean someone who's selling a cell phone necessarily, or someone who's selling a gym membership, although it all applies. I'm talking specifically around high stakes sales, where if you make a sale, you're making a few $1,000s. For some people I talk to, one sale costs them 25 grand. Or if you run a sales team and you have 3 people and your average ticket price is $30,000, for example, if you can help each salesperson make one sale a week, dude, that's you netting an extra $1 million a year from it. So this is why it's important for people to understand, is that if they don't truly believe in the product that they're actually selling, or their role in providing the product, it makes it very hard to sell. And those that they do are the laydowns that are probably not going to have a great experience. So if you're in sales, or if you run a sales team, it is so essential that you work on the root of belief. Your belief in that product, your belief in that offer, your belief in the result and the transformation that your client is going to get. And there aren't really ways to fake this, from my experience. And that's why when I first started coaching in sales, I didn't have this level of belief. So it was harder. And
mm,
again, now that's why I said earlier, I know whatever money I charge someone, it's going to be congruent with the upside of their result. And so if people can take a deep look into like, and do I really believe it? And not in some positive thinking, like, of course I do, I can do it. You can tell yourself that all day long. But if you're still struggling, even a little bit on a sales call, there's a little bit of belief that you don't have. And I've met people that are making multiple 6 and even 7 figures that still have belief blocks that they're holding on to. They're subconscious, because you can still get results from just action, action, action. But what I believe is not just working harder, it's working in a way that becomes effortless. And that's to your point about alignment and congruency, is that when my words, my actions, my beliefs, my thoughts, and my values are all aligned, dude,
mm,
you're unstoppable. But most people can never say that because they don't know what they are. And so going through a process where you can deep dive with someone and figure out what your vision is, make sure it's congruent with what you're currently saying and what you're currently doing, and then get it all in line. Now, instead of just being like a machine gun or like a musket spraying all over, you're a sniper where every shot is just hitting right where you want it to go.
mm. Let me add one other thing here that just pops into my head. I have a great mentor. His name's Jack Zufelt. He talks about how all of us are a Lamborghini or whatever exotic car you want to picture yourself as. A lot of times when we're misaligned, can you imagine a car being completely misaligned? Maybe one car wheel is 40 degrees this way, another one's 30 degrees. You will not be able to get where you need to go. But
Yeah.
when you get everything in alignment, the tires are balanced, that is a drastically different experience. The engine didn't need to be shifted. Literally nothing with the vehicle was physically wrong. It was the way that it was adjusted. A lot of times we are not physically wrong. It is mostly our mental things. We just need to tweak some things.
Yeah.
And if we are in alignment, we go to the chiropractor, we get our back in place. We're like, oh, I can function now. I can breathe correctly. It's that same type of idea. Those belief checks, I like to say this. Do I need to check up from the neck up?
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to do that. And if a belief is no longer serving you, this is something I've learned over the last, decade. If a belief is no longer serving you, you can go back and say, why is it that I believe that? A lot of times it's those stories that we attach to it. You can
Hmm.
go back and you can unlearn that belief and say, what is the belief about myself or about the situation or about sales, about money that I do want? And then how do I find evidence to support that? Is it the truth or is it just something that's convenient?
Yeah.
That's a huge distinction. And that empowers you because unlearning is something that I've learned really quite well through NLP. Because there are some things that you learn just by being in an environment that do not serve you. What is something that comes to mind for you, Kody? We've got just a moment left that you feel is a superpower with storytelling that you wish you had known earlier.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there, bro. I feel like we can really talk for another 2 hours on all of
For
this
sure.
stuff. So
Oh man.
it's fun stuff. You said something earlier though, and it was the
Yeah.
tweaks, the small tweaks.
Mhm.
And what I thought of instantly is conflict resolution.
Beautiful.
Whether it's in a relationship, whether it's with a client who's upset, who's not buying, a friendship or whatever. And for a lot of people, they really struggle with conflict resolution and resolving issues that people have. And a lot of people, I was definitely in that bucket without a doubt. And it took a few tweaks to understand that in conflict, and again, going back to sales, everything is freaking sales and story, but going
Mhm.
back into sales, it's those small tweaks that make the biggest differences most times.
Mhm.
And you might think of something as conflict or something as them not wanting to buy when it's a reframe mentally of like, they're not saying they can't afford it. They're saying, how can I afford it? Your partner's not mad at you because you didn't put the dishes away. They're mad at you because you didn't listen 3 things before that. And that was just a tipping point they happened to express. And so often time the tweak that we reframe in our head about, well, what else does this mean? What else could this mean? And what other contexts is this actually beneficial or could this help? And so I think those tweaks are everything, dude. But to your point about the storytelling and something I wish I would have known sooner, man, I don't know why this is me personally, but I felt like when I used to tell stories, I was trying so hard to maybe convince someone or to get them to
Mm.
believe what I wanted them to believe in it. Like, dude, this is such a great story. Right now, you're all over the place and you're just like spitballing versus just being slow, methodical, and telling a story in a way that someone would receive the information.
Mm.
The way that I'm talking to you right now is not the same way I would talk to my girlfriend or my buddies. I have a buddy of mine. His name is Michael. Super awesome dude, but he's all over the. What's up going on,
Mhm.
bro? How you doing? Like, and just incredible dude. And so when I'm with him, I'm fired up naturally. It's not that I'm faking it, but I'm matching and mirroring. But also, it's
Yep.
just energy is contagious. We're vibrating at that same frequency. So when it comes to telling stories, tell stories in a way that people actually listen to them.
Mm.
Meaning, am I talking very fast and excited? Am I slowing down? And I think a lot of it too is in the power of the pause, is really letting myself feel the emotions. And NLP, we call it association. If I want you to feel sad, I'm not going to say, yeah, dude, and it was crazy. My business was doing very well and it all went to the ground and I lost everything. And yeah, now I'm in San Diego. I'm going to say like, dude, and you know, it went down. My business went completely down. Right. And I'm going to take you into that state, both mentally, emotionally, even physically. I'm looking down.
Mhm.
I'm could be thinking like, dude, there's these physiological things that we do naturally. And then you begin to do them on command because you understand like you're associating your entire story to what you want that person to feel or to think because you're always selling. That's selling again. Is it's not some fake idea of let me sell them into sadness, but you're enrolling them into an idea. Even on a podcast like this, at
Mhm.
the end, we can give a pitch for an offer, or we can say, and I just want you guys to know that your story can change your life. That's a pitch. That's a call to action as well. Is that here's the moral I want you to get from it. Here's what I want you to do. Write down your story. And so when you associate to the story that you have, it changes from you just saying words and telling a story to you being in that story, walking through it, taking someone's hand and say, let's go. I want to walk you through what this journey is like. And that's when it begins to get powerful.
Wonderful summation. One of the things that I just want to tie this up. Why do people want to come and listen to the Leveling Up podcast, listen to storytelling, and specifically this episode? Why would it be beneficial for those that were coming in a little bit late to listen to the whole episode? Go ahead, Kody.
Dude, well, we're not talking about crypto or Bitcoin or something that's new or hot or something that's very niche down. We're talking about something that helps your everyday area of life, which is
Mhm.
communication and human behavior. Forget about NLP. That's just a vehicle. That's just a small thing. I don't even, you hear me rarely even talk about this is an NLP technique. I'm chunking up to human behavior, effective communication,
Mhm.
which leads down to the psychology of selling. So if you're in any form of sales, which hint, every one of us are, if you communicate at all for a living or in a relationship, and you find any value in learning why people do what they do, how they do what they do, how they think the way that they think, this is why this episode is going to be a small introduction into starting your journey of getting into that or diving deeper if you already know some stuff.
Beautiful. Now, every single person that has been listening to my podcast for a while, you know my framework: significant, translate, objective, relive, and yes. I'm going to give you just another 30-second reminder, Kody, about why this is. And I want to hear your thoughts on how you can apply this type of persuasion in your own business, in your own life. Because significance is something that if you can really understand the value for somebody else, what's significant in this moment, and you communicate that effectively, you are going to be having heart-to-heart conversations. If you just did that, storytelling will be different fundamentally for you.
Yeah.
But you can go deeper. If you can translate using words that they understand, ways that they want to say, oh, this is what this matters for me. This is why this makes sense. And then you focus in on an objective that they want to accomplish. Let's say the person says, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. Say, oh, perfect. I'm enrolled in what it is you want. Now we're going to figure it out. The relive section is all about using every different physical, emotional, verbal way that you can bring in and make that story come alive. This is intonation. This is persuasion, everything you can to make it mean something for that person. And then the yes is that clear and concise call to action. And I like to have an exclamation point at the end, because if you get like a, yeah, that's not a commitment. Nobody
Yeah.
commits to it. Yeah, they do commit to it. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. And if you challenge the yes, then you get it. So what's your thoughts on my specific framework? Because this is how I help coaching people into confidence. Let's hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's great. There's a lot of different layers of it. You said something that I found very valuable, which was if you just took the first part, it's going to transform the way you tell a story. And so, what that
Absolutely.
shows me as a potential client or just someone who's interested in learning more about that, everything else is just an add on. If it's all these little bits and pieces you have to nail perfectly, one part in that chain that's broken or that's not perfect is going to make this system not work effectively. What this sounds like, though, it's all very simple, powerful things that once added together make a greater good, which is someone's ability to tell a story. So I believe that that significance component is so important because if you did missions trips in Taiwan, and I'm talking about basketball as an analogy, it's not significant to you, right? The same way I reference
Mm.
in sales or selling a home is that if someone tells me, oh, imagine your kids having, lunch here. And I'm like, I actually don't want to have any kids, which is not true, by the way. But
Right.
if that's the case, it's not significant. And then being able to translate it in a way that they actually understand based on their learning style, based on what they believe, based on their different meta programs. And then what is objective that they can truly get, no matter what is going on around them, what is objectively true, they can't deny. It makes it just easy to be able to digest and accept. And then obviously the relive component, which is associating to it,
Mhm.
walking them through what it's going to be like. And it evokes that emotion. And then that last part, the resounding yes. It has to be a yes, I'm all in for this. Yes, I believe it. And that's where that passion lies. And when telling a story, if there's no passion in it, you're just speaking words. And people can tell when there's passion and when there's not. If you're in sales, if you're telling a story, if you're in a relationship, and passion births emotion. And once you have that emotion, you're then able to relive what it is that you felt in the past or pre-live what you want to feel in the future.
Mm. Beautiful. That was a great connection. Thank you so much for just seeing the value in this. You think about it, guys, as we piece communication ideas together, any portion of this, if you nail one of them, it will make you a more confident person. You nail all of those, you are exponentially a better communicator. And it's you learn line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, just like the Bible talks about. You don't have to do everything perfectly, but as you do your best to communicate and you're sincere about it, you have those heart to heart communications. Like we talked about with the heart set. Man, I think when we have the right intention behind it, everything else shifts. That's really important. So Kody, one last thing. One of the things that I love to ask people, now we've had a whole great hour together. Why would it be helpful for somebody else to listen to me and the Leveling Up podcast? Give us a little Kody G love on the testimonial side.
Yeah, man. Well, number one, you ask incredible questions. Like I said, usually if I'm being very transparent, a lot of times I'm doing podcasts and it's like, okay, cool. 15 minutes left, 20 minutes left. This is great. I think there's a little bit of bias there because we are into the same things.
Yeah.
But no matter what it is, your ability to figure out who someone is, where they're at, what they're good at, translate it back to what you do. It means that everything that people watch in this podcast is going to be relevant to your audience, and it's going to be able to pull that gold out of them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you being on here. Where do people find you online so they can say, hey, Brigham's going to show up on your podcast next week. Where can I go see that? I want to connect more. Let them know where to go to get more Kody G.
Yeah, that name, KodyG.NLP on Instagram, NLP with Kody G on podcast or YouTube, and then Kody Grunke on Facebook. But mostly Instagram is where you're going to find me, and some podcast episodes as well.
Beautiful, man. Super stoked to do that episode with you next week.
Yes, sir.
Continue to level up your life, guys. I'm going to sign out now. Just know that every single time that you take the opportunity to be a little bit better, you level up your life, you can look back at yourself in 3 months, 6 months, 18 months. You will not recognize yourself if you continually progress and level up in every single way, every single day. God bless, guys. We'll see you.